Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret. Things are a little different, can you tell? I've got my camera set up above my computer. This is the top of my computer screen right here. And that's for several reasons. I'm also not wearing a mic right now. I'm using an onboard mic on my camera, so I hope that the sound is going to be okay. I have a couple of things that I have to show you. And it's working with fine yarn, number one. I mean fine as in number one light yarn, say sock yarn. Not fine as in, oh, elegant yarn that costs us a lot of money. No, not like that. Okay, first of all, I talked about this one before, but I don't know if I've shown it to you finished. This is a crochet hat. Now, I don't have the actual pattern because I just sort of did it. But basically, it's just, these are front post stripes that I did right here. But I just love the way it came out. I think it looks so nice. One of the things I like about knitting is that it's generally a smaller stitch. And so by using a fine yarn and a small hook, and I want to say I was using like an E hook. I can't remember the millimeters on that, but it was small. And I really like the way it came out. Now, it fits an adult. You see this head. My foam heads are very small. This one measures 20 inches in circumference. See, I have a little note right here, which is very small for an adult. 22 inches is what my head is, and that would be an average adult size. So this one, however, is 20 inches. And what do I have on it? This is an exercise in patience. This is a 1x1 rib knit hat. And I really do love it because it's so classic. But why would I do 1x1 rib with number one yarn? Well, that's because I was reteaching myself to purl. Now, when you learn to knit, it's a very awkward process. It reminds me a lot of being a toddler and learning to write. You feel awkward and uncoordinated, and you don't want to drop the yarn. You don't want to drop what you're working on. You literally can, by the way, while you're learning, because it's that awkward. So you develop these techniques, be it classic or creative, but that's really nice ways of putting it. Traditional technique as opposed to a non-traditional technique. And that's exactly what I did. I knit continental, and when I was trying to purl, I wanted to get my yarn out of the way. So here's my old way of doing a purl, okay? You put the yarn in front, right? And I would push it out of the way so that I could see where I'm picking up the stitch. And that came from my early days of learning to knit. Then I would wrap it around and then pull it off the needle. So I would push it down so I could see, put it in, wrap it around, and then I would pull it off the needle. And now I just skipped that first step. Instead of pushing it down, why do I have to do that? I could just do that and then wrap it around and pull it off the needle. See? So I'm just going like down one time, and that is in order to get it off the needle. So it's much more efficient. Look, this is so sad. I found a stitch that I liked. I was turning it into a hat, but then I had to go out of town, and I did not write down what I was doing for my decreases, and I couldn't remember, and I got all confused, so I'm going to have to rip this all out. But I'm a process knitter, so it doesn't make any difference. But that resulted in an unnecessary movement. I would have to put my index finger down twice. That's not necessarily good for your joints if you want to be knitting for a really long time. Now, I don't have any problem with my index finger, but I feel like, number one, let's kind of be proactive here and make sure that I don't overwork that finger. And number two, it's faster. It's a faster way of knitting because you're eliminating an extra movement. So I tried making another hat that was a little bit more complicated stitch, and while it was still new to me, I kept making mistakes for various reasons. There's a lot of thinking involved, and of course I don't just sit there doing it quietly. I am watching TV or something. So I ended up making mistakes. So I decided to go with a 1x1 rib. That would force me to do a lot of purls, and it did. And guess what? I was successful. So I now Purl a different way. Now, another thing you might notice that's different in this video, long-time subscribers, is that this is my natural hair, meaning I haven't done anything to it. I washed it, and this is it. I never had curls like this before, and the lady who cuts my hair suggested that we go with something that I could just, you know, scrunch up like this and let it go. You know, sometimes it looks okay, and other times it dries into this kind of frizz. She told me to use this product for curls, and so I've got that in now, so I'm testing it out. So I'll give you a review on that after, after I see if it actually works. But of course, everybody's hair is different, so who knows if it would work for you. There is another reason that I have you set up in this odd way, and that is because I wanted to talk a little bit about being a YouTuber in the yarn community. I just thought you might like to have a little behind the scenes of some of the information that we have access to. Now, one of the things that I thought we'd start off talking about was who you are. Who are the people who watch my videos? Now, before you get freaked out, don't worry, I don't have any access to your details, and that's you in the general sense. For example, and you know what, I've talked about this before, but it changes over time. So I thought you might like to see what the demographics are that watch my channel, who watch my channel. So let's look at the first tiny bit of information here. And this is geography. Where do you live? So it's no big surprise that the English-speaking countries would be the ones that are the biggest. I am kind of surprised in this global society that the United States is really a large difference in between that and the United Kingdom, but not sure why that is. Don't have access to that information. And then the next one we have is viewer age. Now this has changed over time. Now it's kind of interesting to me that all the different age groups seem to increase or decrease, depending on how you're looking at it, by basically the same amount. It looks like little stair steps, with the exception of, you know, this 18 to 24-year-old down here. 55 to 64 is my largest percentage of viewers, and that's no surprise because that's my age. And the whole reason I started this channel was to make friends who had like interests as me, because my own friends here in the real world didn't get knit and crochet. They didn't get that at all. So that really makes me happy to see that that lands right here. And I am pleased about the other age groups, that I seem to appeal to kind of a wide variety of people, which I thought was rather interesting. So let's go on to the next information we have, and that would be gender. Now this could be misleading, and that's because we don't know who has signed on. For example, what if your brother was sitting down and looking at something on the computer, and then he gets up and leaves, and you sit down and you're still signed on as him? Okay, that would register as a male viewer, right? And you know, in some cases, there are people who still share an email address. That happened just the other day. As a matter of fact, I had to send an email to somebody, and this couple shares an email address. So it could be that they are signed on by the name of only one person. That could be female or male. So maybe it's a little bit misleading, so I don't know. But of course, I think that it would be fair to say that even in this day where we are much more open to different genders enjoying different activities, and we try not to put people into a typecast type of gender association, females are probably more commonly crafters, knitters, and crocheters for the most part. So I guess that this one is not a surprise to me at all. Now, the subscription status, look at this. Not subscribed seems huge and subscribed seems small, and you think, oh my gosh, that's horrible. No, this is the YouTube norm. This is the norm right here. So many people watch YouTube without subscribing. And does it matter to me? Nah, not so much, because once upon a time, it did make a difference. It made a huge difference because that's how you got paid. For example, the people with more subscribers got paid more than the ones without as many subscribers, and now it's not the case. Now it is watch time. It's how much time people spend on your videos, whether they're subscribed or not. And there may be, now, first understand that YouTube's algorithm is a great big secret nobody knows, and they won't tell how it is, which makes a good sense to me because you don't want anybody working the system, right? Nowadays, though, we do know that maybe subscribership does add a little credibility to you, but for the most part, this is how everybody's channel looks. So I'm not worried about that in the least. I'm glad to know that I'm falling into the average category in that respect. And this has always blown my mind. This is what device you are watching on. So once upon a time, it was computer that was all the way up at the top. Everybody watched YouTube on a computer. And now, of course, that's not the case. Mobile phone, look how far a mobile phone is above everything else. And just in case you're wondering, this is true for all of YouTube viewers all over the world. Note that this fourth stat is gaming consoles, which doesn't even show up on my stats, so little to none of you watch that way. But another way ours differs from the global norm is that more of you watch on tablets than smart TVs, where globally more people watch on smart TVs than tablets. Trivia. And you know what? That is becoming more prevalent. It used to be a teeny little bar on there, and I'm noticing that it's much more prevalent, and I'm reading too that YouTube is optimizing for this. If you watch on a TV, which we do sometimes down there, Tucker watches all his YouTube on TV. Now there are so many more features that are available to you that were not available at one time, like being able to choose a video from the end screen. Once upon a time, couldn't do that on the TV, and of course new things are rolling out, so that's good to see. Okay, so the next thing interesting too, operating system. Now this has always been the case. Android always wins. Not surprising when you look at the price gap. This is old data in this graphic, but the trend continues. I once had a viewer make the comment that they felt like they were left out because they had an Android device, and that it's like so many people have one, but yet nobody seems to write apps or make programs for Android as much as they do for the Apple iOS. But that's just a misconception, because as you can see here, the number of apps in app stores as of 2021, what's leading? Google Play, and that is the Android store. The App Store, it's a considerable difference right here. It's easier to write for Apple. It's just a simpler process. It's less buggy for various reasons. So oftentimes you will get these apps coming out first and these apps coming out second. Not always, but that's why. And so it may seem as though there are fewer Google apps, but they're not, obviously. You can see that here. So yes, Apple device things usually will roll out faster than Android and be less buggy, but it's not for lack of trying. It's just that one is more difficult than the other, and that's probably why an Android is less expensive. Okay, and then we go along, we see the Windows, the Macintosh, and then Roku OS. And now this is something that I rarely look at, but I thought this was fascinating. And remember that before I ever started doing any sort of crafts and things like this, I was a techno person to begin with. I love computers. I could take them apart, put them back together, build them, I love them. So this stuff too is also fascinating for me in that respect. But look at this. This tells me how people find my videos. And most of the time, and this is what you really want, is the suggested videos to be number one. You want your videos to be suggested to people when they sign on. So whether or not you are subscribed or not is irrelevant, because YouTube is following your IP address. They're following your particular computer to know what it is you like to watch. Now some people freak out about this and they clear out all their cookies and they say, this is terrible, I don't want anybody tracking me. I say this is huge because I like to have suggestions. There are pros and cons to that. And if you've watched the documentary called The Social Dilemma, you'll know what I'm talking about. The internet was initially supposed to be great so that we would all be able to share our views. And think how wonderful it would be if it was as it was originally intended, where somebody would say, oh, I believe this. Oh, you do? Well, tell me more about that. Well, okay, blah, 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 blah. Oh my goodness, I've never heard of it this way. Wouldn't that have been great? But it didn't happen that way. And part of it is because of the algorithms in YouTube and Facebook. Facebook's really bad about it. Twitter, all these things where they put things in front of our faces that are similar to what we've already looked at. Now, the good part about that is that you get your interests. Like I get more crochet and knitting videos suggested to me because that's something I like, which is very handy, right? But that's a bad thing when it comes to situations that divide people. So politics, for example, religion, for example, these things, you keep feeding somebody the same stuff and they begin to believe that that is the only way to think about something. And so they bond together and then they feel angry about people who don't share their same beliefs. And this is what we're seeing a lot on social media. The algorithm is not meant to promote these divisions. It was meant to help you have things of interest that you would like to see more of. So being an educated individual and being a person with strong values and open mind, you need to be aware of that so that you don't get caught up in that ugliness, so that you don't get caught up. You just be aware that you keep being fed information from only one source, unless you search out the other source. And so a wise, open-minded person will listen to both sides, explore the concept that they're talking about, and come up with your own decision. Unfortunately, that's not the way our society works. So what do we do about that? But in the meantime, back to this. Suggested videos are how people find my videos. It pops up and says, oh, you might like to see this one. And then people will click on it and that's how they're finding me. I have a very small channel, so it's not that I'm going to be plastered all over the place. So the question is, for very small channels, how do people find you? Well, the goal is to have them suggested to you. YouTube search, that would be if they're looking for a particular topic. The adding machine helps people find me when they search on information for that. Basically because I was probably one of the first people to ever put adding videos up, and so there's that. Not that I even do very many of them anymore. Another thing would be a specific topic, like troubleshooting magic loop knitting, and that one is something people will search for, and boom, that video comes up for them. Things like that. Now, it is several days later, and I have still not finished editing that other clip. But that's kind of good because I've figured out a few other things I want to add. If you are a Yarny YouTuber, one who likes to talk about knit and crochet, then let me give you a tip. The ones that are going to do best on YouTube are tutorials. For example, my top 25 videos are either some sort of tutorial or review. Just chatty videos like this, they don't do so well. So if you're looking to just make friends, this is great. If you're trying to be, make some money off of this, then put your money in tutorials and stuff like that. And I would also say, please do quality tutorials. For example, don't just put a camera on and record yourself doing it. You need to explain different things so people can take away a skill or just totally understand what's taking place instead of just trying to figure out what you're doing by watching your hands. So those do the best. And I'm looking back at some pictures that I took back in December. As a matter of fact, I think I was in Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's, I don't know, I can't tell. I think it was Michael's. And I saw this great puzzle, which was all yarn. It looks like it would be kind of hard, rather challenging, I think. And I also saw this very simple wall art that you could do. Basically, it's just making tassels, small tassels, and then you put them in the shape of a Christmas tree, which I think is awesome. I'm going to link a video that I made years ago on how to make a tassel, in case you want to do that. We did have everybody home for Christmas, but that probably won't be the case next year. Thomas is officially in England, so I doubt he'll be able to make it home for his next year, but I don't know, maybe we'll have Christmas in England. We'll see. And on a sad note, I need to let you know that Sister Margaret Mary did pass away from cancer in the fall. It was a little faster than I had thought that it would go. I was really hopeful from some of her treatments that she was going through, but very sad. If you don't know who I'm talking about, longtime subscribers will. We banded together and we helped her out to raise funds for her music programs. She was a really special person with legally blind, actually, and a musician like you would not believe. I can't tell you how many instruments she could play, and she taught at a very low-income school where she funded the program herself, the music program herself. And one of the things that she would do is have a craft fair. And so the Sheepishly Sharing community got together and would send her things. But that's just a bit of sad news that I wanted to pass on to you. You see this right here? This is a hint. I have been working, like spending hours on my next video, and that is about knitting journals, DIY knitting journals, why you think you might not want one. You might change your mind when you see some of the things that I'm talking about. I was a person who said, I don't need that. I've since changed my mind. And that's what's coming up. And with that, I am very proud to say that I'm also going to give a free gift. It's easily downloadable if it applies to you. And we'll talk more about that probably in the next video, because I've got to put my efforts into that, and I hope you like it as much as I do. So I've got a few hours to kill, so I'm going to sit down and actually really work hard to get this video edited. Of course, that didn't happen. My older son called. He's so good about doing that on Sundays. And we talk at least an hour or more, and then I came downstairs to find my new low-carb bread recipe was too big for my bread machine. We got Maggie and Brian and baby Nash, the dog, coming over to eat with us tonight, so I'm looking forward to hanging out with them. But in the meantime, let me go get to work. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.